free to take one. So feel free to take one. So I will call upon Nikos Koutras for the next presentation. While we are waiting for him to set up the presentation slides, feel free to take one. Okay, let us welcome Nikos Koutras to present on his project on copyright, new technology and open access towards an inclusive education in information age. So over to you.
Yeah, so thanks once again. I'd like also to thank the organizing committee for giving me the chance to be here. Because last time I had a conference presentation was in 2018, years ago. So I'd like once again to thank you for giving me the chance to share my current progress of research, because at the same time also work teaching. So I come from Perth as well, from Australia, Western Australia, and I'm originally from Greece. So I'd like to talk about these forces, so open access, technology, and copyright, because actually nowadays it's not feasible to talk about reviews, revisions, redrafting things, and law, especially if you do not have some sort of taste of technology, because technology is going to be for us everywhere, and especially since the AI was greatly introduced, we have to take that into account. So I'd like to initially say that open access practice is already part of our discussions daily, especially in the academia. And it's something that can be quite instrumental and quite useful for us to enhance the access and provide further opportunity for access to our students. What I would like to say that there is a global consensus about the importance of open access, which at the same time is going to enhance the, as I mentioned before, access to information sources that we use in the context of our teaching, or let's say workloads. So I'm also going to reflect on my experience because at the same time just a brief, I hold 2 doctoral degrees in political science and the most recent one in law. And during my second postdoctoral research experience in Belgium, I had a chance to go to visit also the University of Amsterdam for some face-to-face interviews about the importance of open access copyright provisions introduced in the Netherlands, the Tavernier Amendment Agreement, and of course in Belgium, respectively. Belgium is a different case because that was only introduced in the French-speaking part. So what I'm going to say that the thing is that, of course, already it's part of education, the digital transformation. So we have everything is more or less, we have this phygital thing. So that means that we have the face-to-face lectures, and at the same time we have the online. We should also give the opportunity for these students cohort at the same time. And the most important thing about the discussion is that apart from providing the opportunity to everyone that has the right to do so, at the same time, the thing that the law tries to do is to find the efficient balance, the most appropriate equilibrium between the stakeholders involved in the production, distribution, and dissemination of information sources. So that means that we have publishers, let's say on one hand, and the other hand is us, teachers and students at the same time. The thing is that the problem is, if we say what's the problem, that there is this open access, there are initiatives that are welcome the relevant implementation, but what is missing, especially as far as Australia is concerned, that is not yet relevant copyright provision introduced. And what I'm saying that I'd like also to follow I'm taking your path. So that's exactly, I'm trying to integrate your message to my message for Australia, given that as long as we have some good results already as demonstrated, why don't we take it this way? And you will understand, everybody, what I'm saying at the very end of the presentation. And also, as you can see, Curtin also plays a very important role in this part of discussion about the importance of open access through this initiative, the Curtin Open Knowledge, for those that may not be aware of. I mean, that was my main thing about the argument that I'm trying to build in Australia in terms of the importance and the perspectives that is going to be offered to Australia by introducing in the Copyright Act this open access provision has some sort of incentives. I mean, I was inspired due to these things. So apart from the face-to-face interviews that I conducted in my second postdoctoral research project in Belgium, when I also visited the Netherlands, there was also the federal government public inquiry, which has been completed since February 2022, where 109 stakeholders of Australia participated. And they also expressed, either directly or indirectly, their perspective about open access. And another important thing is that at the same time, aligned with my argument about the importance of open access, is also Australia's chief scientist, Dr. Kathy Foley, who has already published an open access roadmap for Australia specifically. So those are the main three things that I just inspired and said that, okay, let's start working further for this to be integrated in Australia at the same time. And I also, the Treaty of Lisbon is part of my first doctoral degree when I was talking about the active educational resources, because at that time, that was back in 2015, the open educational resources were just becoming part of the discussion and also part of the higher education and the higher industry. So I thought that was introduced, this triangle of knowledge was introduced through the Lisbon Treaty in 2009. And that illustrates how important it is that to take into account for our educational purpose the access to information, because at the same time this access to information enhances our research capacities, as you can see through this triangle of knowledge, and at the same time this also connects us with the industry that we are interested to get in after we graduate. This also demonstrates this global consensus about the open access practice. I'm just addressing some examples for you just to see it in South Africa as well, and Singapore, and of course in the Netherlands. There are all these initiatives and policies. So I have also attended some workshops lately about the open access research infrastructure in Australia. So I can see that all universities have a different perspective about open access, and they have at the same time a policy applicable. But the main thing is that we should start working in a more collective way. So we should also have the same objective in terms of access to information sources. And I will justify later on why I think that they should be collectively addressed. I also did the ANOVA analysis. So I attended the training course at the University of Bamberg in Germany in 2017. And there was when I was just encountered with the ANOVA analysis, so the analysis of variation. So what I did, I downloaded the 109 submissions for the federal public inquiry submitted for the copyright access bill of 2021. That has to do, it was an amendment for the, it was an access reform actually legislation. Didn't go through anyway. But the thing is that the important, those 109 stakeholders of Australia had the chance to express and disclose their perspective about open access. So I just downloaded that, and what I did then, I just go to PDF documents and see how many times the open access as a phrase, as together as one, has been addressed. So what I did come out of this, that 59%, I just keep the 40.3% that indicates that open access has been addressed and in their submissions. And that shows something from my research purposes. Yeah, just give you an indicative of the stakeholders that they did address and how many times this open access was addressed in their submissions. Just an indicator over here. And that was also the Australian perspective. So, as you understand, there is a consensus, a global consensus, as I mentioned before, but what I can see through these submissions, this public inquiry, that there is also this tension from the Australian jurisdiction as well. And another thing that which would also take into account is that all the social phenomena has a historical background. So for all of us, I mean, for those that we teach, always, let's say for the introduction of the unit, I'm teaching intellectual property, business intellectual property, and practical employment law, for your information. So every time the introductory unit, let's say introductory lecture, I always like to, because students are not, they're not obliged to be aware, fully aware of the unit content, so I always like to give a small glimpse of historical development of those two units, those two, not units, the topics of the unit that are going to be addressed. So I did this also for my point of view to see exactly and fully understand how this discussion and considerations around copyright amendments and reform have been addressed since the first introduction of the Copyright Act. And that was the very last one, the one that I just get engaged with, and I mentioned before to you. Specifically, I also, during one of my publications already 7 months ago, I made some proposals, specific proposals on how this can be gradually integrated in the body of the regulatory body of copyright in Australia, and sorry for that. And these are my proposals, as I mentioned before, how we can do that. And this is exactly what I said before, that actually Plato, that the Republic. So Plato was always talking about the knowledge that should be distributed. The knowledge should not be something that is for personal use, should be public. And therefore, the access to information, and I also like now to connect that with Foucault's perspective, that access to knowledge means that knowledge is a power. So access to information gives us this pathway to knowledge. And at the same time, knowledge should be distributed. Knowledge should be disseminated, because this knowledge, this skill empowers everybody, empowers citizens, empowers students at the same time. So therefore, I think that, because actually, what I can say, that open access perspective, the open access practice, is already founded from way long ago, as far as I'm concerned. And that's why I conclude my presentation with this slide, and I'd like once again to thank you for this.
Thank you very much, Nikos. Is there any questions? Is there any questions for Nikos? Okay, that's one.
Thank you for the presentation. I guess my question would be, as you have encouraged people to have open access to knowledge, what else could we do as, I guess, a discipline or higher education to do better? Because obviously journals nowadays, they have open access, but they are 5,000 USD per journal article.
That's a great question, thanks for that. The thing is that in the Netherlands, by the way, there was a survey published demonstrating that since they just stick to the Tavernier agreement, the amendment, universities and in the Netherlands, they increased the access to sources. So this specific Tavernier amendment says that publicly funded research and short research outcomes, such as articles, chapters, and books, they should be open access after 6 months of embargo. So in those universities, they rely on this provision and they boost by 12,000 access to their publicly funded research outcomes. So they just, and they reach the 95% of access to their production, research production. Indeed, you got a great point. The thing is that this differs from discipline to discipline. Therefore, in Belgium, because I also mentioned that, they are still working since 2023 to produce this survey about the importance and what is actually the outcome of this new integration of in the Belgian Copyright Act. But because there is a discipline oriented, so for the science and mathematics, there are different embargoes applied, whereas for social sciences as well. So, but I think that after this survey of almost 12,000 more research outcomes have been already publicly accessed, I think that this is something to note down, and the survey that is going to be shortly published in Belgium about this going to be another justification. Thanks for your question.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so the next presenter is Chin Hui Ding with her project entitled Bridging the